Hi all, welcome to the Political Science Student Association. This meeting's about politics and political polarization. We're hoping to be able to get like a conversation together to help equal out party lines, come together, help like us understand why polarization is such a big issue and hopefully do better. And with that start also, I have the president of the Democrats Club here, Tyler, who's going to give a little spiel here, and also a member of the Republicans, and also my amazing vice president, Miss Sedota. So, here you guys want to take it away.
When your meetings are.
Oh yeah, okay. What's up everybody? I'm Tyler, I'm the president of the Young Dems here on the Dahlonega campus. We are an organization here that welcomes everybody into our meetings no matter their political orientation, which is why I love the PSSA Crossroads meeting because they do the same thing. We meet every Tuesday right in that room, Young 216 from 5:30 to 6:30. I would love to have any and all of you there.
As Anita said, my name is Sedona. I'm a member of the College Republicans, also vice president here. And our meetings are also Tuesdays at 6 in the basement of Newton Oaks, that like X015. You guys can also follow our Instagram. We'll have like updates there about like what our meeting topics are. But similarly, we accept like anybody who wants to come in and talk, have a discussion. So feel free to stop by.
Okay,
Okay, why don't you lead us into the discussion?
All right, so there's been a lot of stuff, of course, recently with political violence that's been happening that allow polarization from both parties, just people upset with each other, lack of discussion. How do you guys feel on that? Do you guys have like any views that you want to talk about?
I think times like this do at least just make me really grateful for the discussions that we can have on this campus. I mean, it's not perfect. Of course, there's going to be, super passionate people on each side that are never going to see eye to eye. But it just makes me appreciate that we can come here together as a group and discuss everything that we do.
I really need like a crickets button, just like, yeah.
What about the rest of you? What do you think? Is this ever going to change? Is it always going to be more of the same? Is it going to get worse? Is it going to get better? What do you think? Yeah.
I think with the rise of social media, with AI, everything's going to be more polarized than ever. That's why. Because we have so many people. I don't say like so many people. Like some people who are like arguing about something online, and they literally say they can cause like commotion online with AI about anything, and that could lead to violence, I would say, not violence, like after effects, something like that.
Well, let me ask you this. You were hoping to have Dr. Gerstensen show up today, and unfortunately he can't be with us. What do you think he would say if he were here?
Oh.
Anybody else, feel free to jump in there too if you've taken these courses.
A lot of words that are incredibly smart that I struggle to understand. I believe that is the gist. I need like a whole like notebook, my computer, Google research, while also listening to him and being like, I feel so dumb. That's the general.
Would he be talking about things like media cocoons and social media and all of that? What do you think he'd be saying about that?
I think he might mention how social media, at least like the algorithms that we deal with now, especially TikTok is like the biggest one I can think of. It's literally like rigged against us. It's rigged to get people going to engage on the platform because it furthers them. But at the same time, it is absolutely furthering the political divide between now like everyday people. So I feel like in 2020, I still think it was because everyone was bored, but that's beside the point. In 2020, we kind of saw it all come to a culmination after it like was so much online that then it kind of blew up in person. And I feel like maybe we're kind of experiencing the same pattern of everybody was so online and against each other and like the election and now this first part of Trump's term that now it's kind of culminating again in person.
Okay, others? So it's feeding you more of these algorithms on these social media sites, and correct me if I'm wrong, are feeding you more of what they think will get you to engage?
Yeah,
Is that right?
yeah, they'll give you videos that are like opposing views. Sometimes it's a little obvious because it's videos that are not popular at all on the platform. But it's like the algorithm knows that if it puts it on your page, you're going to react to it, and that video is going to pick up traction.
Is that what the rest of you? Think?
I mean,
Yeah.
I definitely think like a really bad provider of that is like Facebook. Because if you think that like Instagram or like TikTok and stuff can get you down like a rabbit hole, I don't know if you've seen what Facebook moms go down. It's a scary road. It's interesting. Even like not to say that the older generation don't quite know how to navigate social media, but you definitely see them falling for, especially like fairly old people, falling for like AI stuff, fake news articles, and then they send it to their grandchildren, and then you're like, what are you doing? I don't know how to help you. And I think it's definitely like, it's exasperated a bit, more with the older generation than what you would think, because I think everybody's like, oh, these young kids on their cell phones, they don't ever like look at anything besides that. They spend way too much time on social media. But I think it's affected every generation at this point. And it's causing people to be more enthralled with what is like people that they don't know, anonymous people, which expounds like more of like, I feel like when someone's behind a screen, they're more likely to say things that they would never say to a person's face ever. And I think that we just see like a continuance of this causing more and more and more hate.
Is it just that, or are there other causal factors, you think? I have some ideas, but I want to hear from you guys first. Is it just social media, or is it anything else?
I think profit, weirdly enough. I think it's profitable right now to hate each other and create this sort of divide. Not only does it grab clicks, but it gets people to turn into the news. It gets people afraid. And that's how people kind of make money off of it. If we keep people in constant fear, then they're going to be constantly tuning in. Then they're going to be constantly buying merch or whatever they're trying to sell us. The point is that we've tried to dehumanize each other when ultimately, no matter what opinion you have, we're all trying to do what we personally think is best. Even if you think the other side is doing something wrong, it doesn't matter what, they're still doing what they think is best. They're not trying to be specifically malicious to you, and that's something we need to remember when we have these sort of debates and conversations, is that they're human and they're trying to do what they think is best as well.
Okay, others? Any other causal factors that you can think of?
It's not just social media, it's also just media in general, especially like, very biased news sources like CNN or Fox, which are the two big ones. You see a lot of stuff on either of those networks that are basically pushing their viewers to not like the other side. And it makes them money, like he said, and it gives those news sources more credibility on their side, and makes people like us feel like we have to hate each other because we don't agree with each other, which is not the case. Which is something that can be worked on in smaller areas like Dahlonega, like Lumpkin County, like our campus, for an example, which right now is what we're doing that. The college Republicans and the college Dems, we work together. We have worked together. We've done events together. But if you go off of our campus, if you leave our small area, that's not common. And it won't be common unless people start realizing, like, we are all Americans trying to do what we think is best for our country. Let's work together on that.
Okay, others? I'm going to give you another possibility, one that's not necessarily media related, although maybe indirectly connected to media. You can come through if you need. And that is political parties. I think everything that you guys have said, I'm sure that Dr. Gershenson would agree with everything that you've said, and that certainly is a causal factor. But one thing that I've seen, so he sees it from his point of view, and everything you've said that you think that he would say, I think is correct. I see it from the point of view of my own research, expertise, et cetera, which is political institutions like political parties. And I see it as a growing competition between political parties, which is to say, for much of the 20th century, there was one, we talk about realignment theory. If you've studied American government, you hear about realignment theory. You study political parties, you hear about it. And it's an idea that there's, at any given time, there's one dominant party, one majority party and one minority party. And then every so often, events change, leaders change, a new generation of leaders replaces an old generation of leaders, old issues are settled, new issues arise, and the parties realign themselves out around those new issues with those new leaders, and that instant may lead to a new majority party. Now, throughout much of the 20th century, the majority party was the Democratic Party. From 1930 onward, from the 1860s to the 1920s, it was the Republican Party. And there was a huge realignment with the Great Depression. And that left the Democratic Party a solid majority party. And that really lasted into the 1990s, so about 60 years. But starting in, really going back as early as the 1960s, but definitely by the time you get to the 1980s, you start to see the Republican Party reach power. You start to see the Democratic Party losing support, Republicans not necessarily gaining support. More people are actually moving away. We see an increase in independence. But all of that leaves the Democrats and Republicans about equally balanced. And in fact, I had one of my classes do this just the other day. If you go on to the Gallup website, news.gallup.com, and you look at political party affiliation among the public, you will see right now the latest poll showed 28% affiliate with the Republican Party, 28% affiliate with the Democratic Party, and 43% are independents. So the two parties are exactly equal right now. And we have seen in the presidency and in the Congress, back and forth, Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrat. We have a Republican president. Before the last election, it was a Democratic president. Before that election, it was a Republican president. Before that election, it was a Democratic president for 2 terms. Before that, it was a Republican president for 2 terms. Before that, it was a Democratic president for 2 terms, and on and on and on. And so because we are so evenly balanced, and because any little thing can flip a House of Congress from one majority party to the other. Republicans currently have a majority in the House of Representatives. It's just a couple of votes. Right? Same thing in the US Senate. That has pushed the two parties to rigidly not give an inch. Okay? And they're so unwilling to compromise because of the idea that any little shift might cost them their majorities in Congress, might cost them the next presidential election. That's fed into this polarization as well, that our side can't give a single millimeter without risking any power that we have. And so whoever's in power will try and do as much as they can, as quickly as they can, and they're going to try and shut out the other side as much as possible, and then the other side will try and play that into an electoral victory the next time. And because they're so closely balanced, that might just happen, but it'll again be by just a couple of seats, a couple of votes, a couple of percentage points, and the cycle starts all over again. So I think that's a good part of our growing political polarization as well. The almost exactly equal balance of the two major parties, along with this media and social media, the algorithms and the profit motive, for example. So again, let me ask, do you think it's, is there any, I usually ask this at the end, but I'm going to ask it earlier. Is there any hope for the future, or is it just going to be more of the same? Is it going to get worse before it gets better? What do you all think?
I remember, like, 2018, when John McCain died, like, President Obama went to his funeral, he offered him to a eulogy. I'd like to go back to our time where both Democrats and Republicans can disagree, but in the day, we can still respect each other and have a civil conversation without going to the extremes, like killing people, like we saw with Charlie Kirk a month ago, respectful dialogue.
But is that now, I've heard a lot of people say that, and I think a lot of people legitimately believe that, but I don't think we've moved in any direction at all. Is that, I mean, is there anything that can get that, going? Anita, then you.
I think maybe just like in the next election, like once people vote, if they can vote for someone who is maybe less exasperated in their tone and like harshness, because love him or hate him, Trump is very like abundant in ways that he will call people awful things and say the most random crazy stuff sometimes. He's a very like, he's too much time on Twitter. I think just literally having a president that isn't on Twitter might be a good thing for the country. Just like having someone who's like more stoic and more available to doing bipartisan efforts would help also install that belief further in the rest of the country.
I think you're right, but are people going to do that anytime soon? Are any great number of people going to do that anytime soon?
I'm hopeful that maybe they see like some of the things that are happening right now with the hate and just polarization that's in the country, that maybe people will want someone who's a little bit more neutral, a little bit more open to working with people to do something better.
I think one of the worst signs we've seen recently is whenever there's another one, and unfortunately there's always another one, and there's going to be another one, of these shootings that occur, what's the first thing each side does?
Points to the other side.
What did it say?
They point to the other side.
They point to the other side, exactly. We are so worried that it's not going to be our side that committed the crime, that it has to be the other side. And that's not a real hopeful sign. What do you think?
At the end of the day, we need to remember that we're not Democrats or Republicans, but all American. And it's going to take, in my opinion, and I obviously don't wish this, but it's going to take something bad to happen. And we see this with 9/11. You know, a lot of times we were talking about never forget, remember how unified a nation was, but that's because we weren't fighting against each other. We had seen this as an attack on us as Americans, not an attack on Democrats, not an attack on Republicans. And it's going to take an event like that for us to kind of reshape our ideology, because right now it is, like even with the attack on Charlie Kirk, it wasn't an attack on an American speaking up or speaking out, whatever he believes in, it was an attack on a Republican.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, finish up. Okay, before we go to you, I just want to make note to everybody that's here. We have a pretty good crowd today, whether you're here for this or not. Whether you're here for this or not, I have an attendance sheet that I'm going to pass around, and if you put your name down, that'll verify your attendance. And if you write a faculty name next to it, you'll see the column. I will contact that faculty member and let them know that you were here. I can't guarantee that they'll do anything about it, but I will verify that you were here, so I'm going to start passing that around right now. Okay, go ahead.
I do want to agree with that. I do think really the only time that Americans are going to come together and unite in the way that we haven't been in so long is in another tragic event. And I don't mean just another political session. I mean like a major event, either a new war or another major conflict or something, because otherwise I think it's just going to get worse with the polarization. I feel like Trump forever changed
how politics is seen by the average person. The average person now kind of, I don't know, I just want to say, like, I think people do enjoy the spectacle that he puts on now, and it's not the boring, bland politics it is now, and he definitely shows that. And I don't know if he's going to win nomination, but Gavin Newsom, I don't know if you've seen it online, he is kind of doing the same thing that Trump was doing, but as a Democrat now. And if he wins the nomination, and it's J.D. Vance and Newsom, it's just going to get worse because they're going to be just attacking each other. It's not going to be any more, I'm going to try playing nice, I'm going to try being respectful. No, it's going to just be name calling back and forth and back and forth. And I don't think it's going to get any better for a long time, honestly. I could see this happening for many years. This polarization just getting worse and worse. I don't know when the breaking point is. I don't know when people finally come back together, but I don't see it happening for at least another decade.
I think there's hope in our generations, in the future generations to come, just because we can see and kind of change our mindset. I don't think older people are like in that stage where they can actually change what they believe in. They're close-minded and that's it, that's what I know. And also, I think there's we need another party. We need another in between those two, where people can actually believe in as well. And we, the people who are more centrist, we can vote on them. Because I cannot go to the elections, last elections, it was so complicated because it's either I vote for this one, which is not a good leader, or this one, which is the worst leader. So it's not a good option for us to vote. El Salvador had the same story until a couple of years ago. There's new political party began. They just out of nowhere they created this party, and then people started believing in them because they were tired of it. They were tired of the right and left. So I think that might be a possibility. Now, who's gonna do it? That's the question.
Okay, Anita, and then
Just going back on what you were saying about bringing people together by a tragedy, not even just 9/11, Pearl Harbor. That's what brought us together as a country. It's sad to think that that's what it takes to get people to get along, but I can definitely think of even in family dynamics, there's always that one crazy family member that you don't really like, but I may dislike them and we may get into spats, but if someone was to try and hurt them, okay, hands, I'm throwing hands, even though I'm tiny and probably wouldn't help much, but I would still do that because they're family. I think that unfortunately things like that bring an amount of unity that I don't know how else we'll get them. I hope that we can get them in another way, that change can happen in a different way than something like that, but at least based on the history of our country, that doesn't really happen.
Yeah, I do think we have a little while longer to go with the intense polarization. Kind of what we talked about earlier with the 28% Democrat, 28% Republican, and that 43 in between. It would be so nice if we could get a party that would just magically appeal to that 43% in between. But as you mentioned of it being a competition, it's so expensive to run today. I mean, for Kamala being over $1 billion, Trump being just under it in this past election, it would be not impossible, but it would take a really, I don't know, it's difficult to propose a third party under such intense polarization because you're not going to be able to form a platform on issues that 43% will still agree with, I don't think it's possible to get another 28% or more than 28% of that group in the middle to be able to beat out either party, as nice as it would be, because I know a lot of people, a lot of my friends that I talk to are really ready and open to the idea of a third party, but I agree that's probably also a younger generation thing. I don't know if older people would be open to that at all.
Again, the whole thing with the third party, I do strongly support that. I do think having a third party, or actually just not saying third party, I just want to have more of an open election like what happens in Europe or even in Canada, where there's upwards of 5, 6, 7 major parties in the and they were the thing is though is I do think that if you do split up the Republicans and the Democrats and do break them up into their blocks, because one of the major problems of Democrats and Republicans is that they can't figure out where they want to stay ideologically. Like Democrats are stuck between, should we go more the progressive route or should we stick more to the centrist moderate route? Same to the Republicans, should we go more conservative or we should stay more in the center? And the thing is though, people on both sides just point at each other and say the Republicans are fascists and they say the Democrats are communists, and no one can agree. So that's why independents are keep leaving the two main establishment parties, because they feel like they don't represent them anymore. If we do open up where there are multiple ideologies, parties with more center left, more center, center right, and then you have your normal left and right wing parties, that would help us so much more because people can genuinely vote for what party sticks with them the most. And you can see it's happening in Europe. It works there. I feel like it can work here as well.
Now, we actually had that for a little while, for the blink of an eye, in the 1990s with the Reform Party. Ross Perot created the Reform Party. He was the most successful third-party candidate since Teddy Roosevelt, 80 years earlier. In the 1992 election, he got almost 20% of the popular vote. And in fact, during that summer after the conventions, there were times when he was the leading candidate. Okay, the Reform Party then, in a sense, took off and ran candidates all over the nation, elected one governor, the governor of Minnesota, Jesse Ventura, okay, and a whole number of state legislators and city council members all over the country, and then they disappeared. They fell apart. Ross Perot ran again in 1996, only got 8% of the vote, which was still better than most other third-party candidates. He decided not to run in 2000, and the Reform Party literally fell apart at their nominating convention, which by that time was basically a room about the size of this lobby. There were two candidates, both claiming the Reform Party nomination, and there wound up literally being a fight where the police had to be called in. So the Reform Party's still around today, but it's about as visible as it is right here. Okay, so I mean, it's happened before. Why isn't it happening now? I mean, we hear a lot of people say we want that, but we don't have it. If so many people want it, why don't we have it?
Money. I think not only that, but it's hard to get a really unifying candidate because, especially for just a third-party option, because a lot of issues are more complicated than that. People are able kind of to be filtered into a Democrat and Republican process just because it's two sides. You got one or the other. The more parties you start to do, especially if you go three, it's hard because issues are more complex. What are you going to stand on? Are you going to be anti-immigration but pro-tariffs? Are you going to be pro-immigration? Or, there's a multitude of different issues that you can pick and choose from, and a lot of times it's not going to align with the 43% in the middle because their policies are different. It would be better to see a situation like Europe or Canada or a lot of these other parliamentary democracies where you have 8 parties, because everybody is an individual and everybody's issues are a lot more complex than just one way or the other, and it's definitely more complex than one way or the other or this third option.
All right, others? Yeah, okay, we have people over here. Good, speak up.
So yeah, I think you look back at the Reform Party's success in the 90s, and he spoke on money. One of the great benefits the Reform Party had is the central figure in the Reform Party was Ross Perot, who was a billionaire, a very, very wealthy man. And over the summer, Elon Musk kind of floated out creating a third party. I don't think that would have worked because I think Musk is a considerably more divisive character than Perot was. And then you also brought up the two most successful third-party elections of the 20th century, the 1912 and the 1992 election. And again, the 1912 election, that was considerably different because you had Teddy Roosevelt, who was kind of a unique character. And I don't know if you have those unique characters in politics anymore that could just come out of nowhere, not identifying as Democrat or Republican and be very successful.
If they couldn't do it, is there any hope for anybody else?
As the system is right now, I fail to see where that has any probability. It would, some sort of major change would have to occur.
Okay.
On the third party, you guys are talking about like a third party being created for the middle. It's very possible to instead sift Democrats to the middle and simply remove more of the far left elements out of the Democratic Party. Because organizations for the far left already exist out there that are not necessarily political parties that could take over the farther left side of the group. And so that's where you could have a third party system without having, with all the money issues, because you already have some organization on there, so you would simply shift some people around.
Okay, I like hearing what you're saying, but I'm going to tell you that it's just not going to work. I mean, I hate to say that because I think you're on the right track. It's not going to work because the Democratic Party is certainly not going to voluntarily split up. Given our system of elections, our first past the post or winner take all elections, you split the Democratic Party in two, and guess who's going to win every election? The Republicans. And so Democrats aren't going to do that.
But I think a very small group would split out of the Democrats, but I think of that group that are not Democratic or Republican, there would also be a chunk of that would join that new party.
Okay, so if you got people from the middle?
No, people from the extreme far left. Because there are people in the extreme far left who won't vote for either party ever.
Okay.
And they don't really vote a lot, so that's where part of their power comes from, because they don't like the two parties.
I do think that one of the biggest problems of making a third party is, again, how our political system is formatted. The Electoral College, again, I'm going to go on a quick little rant. The Electoral College, I think, is very bad in the way it is. It prevents third parties from winning because you need nationwide support across the entire country to even have a remote chance of winning. Again, Ross Perot, he got very close to winning in a few states. I think he got really close to winning in Utah, but again, he did not win a single state. And all he did was steal votes from, I'm not going to say steal votes, but took away votes from other parties, but allowed a party who wouldn't have won that state to win. Like, again, look or what happened with Teddy Roosevelt, where the Republicans should have won, but Woodrow Wilson won because the Republicans were split. And one of the problems is that we cannot have a multi-party system with the current system that we have now, because it just incentivizes the first, what was the term?
First past the post.
Yeah, that, and you just need the most
Around
amount of
the
support
elections,
you can around the nation, and you need to have those two major parties, otherwise you're not going to win. And we cannot think about the opportunity of having multiple parties till we change the Electoral College and either into reform it in some sort of way or just get rid of it and have a popular vote system.
And what are the two biggest obstacles to changing our electoral system?
I'm not for sure.
We've just been talking about them.
Oh, just the
What?
The parties?
yeah, the parties. Yeah, they don't want to do
Republican
it.
parties. Why don't they want to do it?
They won't win.
Because they won't win.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, there's that balance. I said neither one of them wants to give an inch, so neither one of them is going to support anything new. Now, having said that, we have seen several states adopt this instant runoff voting that has made some differences. Whether or not that's going to change anything anytime soon, I don't know. But who else? Sedona, you want to say?
Yeah. Just to add on to that, even if, we do some magical reform to the Electoral College, which I don't even know if we'll
It's
see
probably
that in our
not gonna
lifetime.
Yeah.
Even if we were to do that, I think an interesting example, we had a German, someone come in from the German embassy last semester, and he
Last year,
came in
yeah.
and talked. And he talked about how they just had formed their first coalition in their equivalent of a Congress. And so I decided to just go ahead and check up and see how that's doing, to see if hypothetically we can bypass this whole Electoral College thing and we could have some sort of American coalition, which sounds crazy even coming out of my mouth. But even if we got that far, I just think it would immediately become like a gridlock situation, and then people would immediately be so turned off to the idea of having another coalition afterwards.
I think His hand was first.
Oh, I was gonna say I do kind of agree with that because even though in Europe there are the multiple parties, it's happening in Europe too, where major political polarization is also happening, where we're starting to see in a lot of major countries in Europe their coalitions collapsing and governments collapsing, where they have to constantly hold new elections year in and year out. I think in which country
United
is it?
Kingdom?
Yeah, that's one definitely is the UK's polarization, because I don't know if you look at the recent polling in the UK, Labour Party and the Conservative Party collapsed, but the Reform Party are supposed to be the new major party, like getting like 500 seats in the parliament. If you look at one country I know for sure has a horrible political system that just it keeps collapsing is Bulgaria. Bulgaria has had like 10 elections in the last like 6 years. And they just can't. Every time they get a new a new coalition, it falls apart instantly because of the political polarizations happening in their country. So again, even if we do get a third party, it's really going to help us because it will still just be fighting on the extremes, and it's just going to rip it apart at the seams, no matter what we do.
And by the way, the British Reform Party bears no resemblance at all to Ross Perot's American
No,
Reform Party at all. Nigel Farage is very closely connected to Donald Trump, and so it's a very conservative political party. The centrist party really would be the Tory party, actually, in that situation, those three.
I think that no matter what, like we see like the same issues, not just in our country and other countries. Maybe it's like less of a violent extreme that we've unfortunately seen in our country, but there's just like a gridlock where people both agree that they disagree, but they refuse to even move an inch to try and make progress. Like it's just they refuse to work with each other. I think that we thankfully can see that less in the lower governments, like state government, because they have to actively work with each other to like form bills. And the way that, at least for like the Georgia state and many other states, they have like line item vetoes, so they have to like work, they have to talk with each other. Like one of the common things I've heard about, or not common, I heard that one of the reasons why a lot of people do not want to even, that are already in politics, don't want to further go up is because of the lack of communication between parties, or even with other people like in the Senate that are in the same party. They don't talk with each other. They don't want to talk with each other. They just have what they set, what they believe in, and then they just go for it. And they refuse to like budge an inch. And I think we're seeing a lot of fallback from that because we're now in like a place where none of us, we're so strong in our beliefs, which I think can be a great thing, but we don't want to work with anybody else that is even a less % of that belief.
Let me tell you a little story about myself and my thoughts on political polarization. I've seen this for a long time now. And my thinking was that we had kind of crossed the worst part of it, and hopefully we're starting to get a little better. And that if we were lucky, it would get better and better and better. You know when that was? That was 1996 when I thought that. Okay, so I don't know. What do you guys, as we head towards the last few minutes of this, what do you guys think for the future? What are the prospects for the future? Is it going to be more of the same? Is there any hope for it getting better, or what?
I think as like you guys talk about political parties get more polarized, I think there will be more of a desire from that center group to see more centered politicians. And it's possible that maybe both parties take on policies that more bring them to the center, because there is much more of a voter base there than on either extreme of the political side. And so it's more beneficial to fight over a much bigger center than to secure those far votes if you lose the center.
Others, what do you think is going to happen in the future? Oh, yeah.
I don't think any of the two major parties will collapse anytime soon, but if I had to give a prediction of which party I would, like if in the future of what could happen with polarization, the party that I think would have the split group in it would be the modern Republican Party right now, because I feel like right now, as the Republican Party is shaped, it is Donald Trump's party. That is his party. Once he goes, I don't know who will take the mantle, and I feel like there will be a lot more moderate Republicans who are currently in Congress or just out in the nation there, who are just keeping quiet for now because they want to support Trump and they're riding this. But once he goes with his charisma and his massive popularity, I don't think JD Vance has that level of charisma, that level of power and influence that Trump has. I don't think he'll ever get to that point, even if he did. And there will be I wouldn't even think it would be that major of a split, but you would definitely start seeing maybe some more moderate Republicans try to distance themselves from it now, and definitely more far-right Republicans trying to take it even more right wing. And I feel like and once that happens, 2028, if JD Vance doesn't win, I feel like that would be the time where we might start seeing some divisions in the Republican Party.
It's interesting that you say that because that's been talked about before, and I've actually discussed that in my classes years ago. And years ago, the answer would have been the Democratic Party would have been the one that flew apart. Back when they were the majority, as I mentioned, throughout much of the 20th century, it was a majority composed of two completely incompatible factions. Mm-hmm. You had moderate and liberal pro-civil rights Democrats like Hubert Humphrey in Minnesota, and then you had Southern Democrats who were very conservative, and they're the parents of today's Southern Republicans. Mm-hmm. And yet they managed to keep their coalition together for 60 years. But if anything that would have flown apart then would have been the Democratic Party. And the Republican Party, as a smaller party, was much more unified. So you think it's the opposite now?
I do feel like we've gotten to that point now where, again, there is still another outcome where I can see the Democrats collapsing, because at the same time there is a lot of division in the Democratic Party of should it go more left or go back to the middle, because there's a lot of people saying the reason why they lost 2024 is because they were too far left wing, but also a lot of people are saying the reason why you lost the 2024 election because you didn't accept the progressive policies that a large portion of the base would support, like free healthcare, free education, and all that. But even though I know the Democratic Party's at its all-time low popularity-wise, again, and the Republicans are riding on a high, I just feel like once Trump goes, he is that uniting factor in the Republican Party, and once he goes, people will start trying to take power in that, and they will not be able to, no one's going to be able to have that strength and power and influence that Trump has to keep that party united. And I feel like there will be a bit of a splinter, not a major splinter, but there will be a splinter in there.
Okay, so go to the last word, and then we're going to have Anita close this out.
I'm hearing you out. Who do you think, though, perhaps the Democratic Party, who do you think, as opposed to Vance, because you said you don't think the Republican Party will rally around him quite like they did for Trump? Who do you think that the Democratic Party right now has that they can put on a stage that will unify people just as much as Vance, or more than Vance?
Again, that's another tough situation because, again, you're right. Right now, the Democratic Party is in a crossroads of who should be the uniting factor. Again, there's still a large amount of Democrats who are saying, ride with Kamala again. But I don't know if you've seen the polling too. Her approval's tanking. Newsom is taking the advantage. Newsom, he's doing that, this type of campaigning. Even though he's not announced his campaigning, I know he's going to. He is definitely being a lot more antagonistic, like Trump. And I see, yeah, he's being that type of person. But the thing is, though, I don't know if he'd be able to unite it because he's from California, and that's a big problem with a large amount of people. It's like, oh, he's a West Coast elite, he's rich, he doesn't care about the rest of us. And to be fair, if you look at his policies, he's not all that progressive. He's not that good of a politician in the first place, but he is kind of uniting it. I think he's really close to taking the lead over Kamala. Even though I don't think he would be the best case, I feel like he would be that type of guy who would be able to take the Democratic Party and be like, we're now the Democratic version of Trump. That's what I think he's going to try doing, and I think it might honestly work.
Sedona, that's a good question to ask, because for a long time now, neither party has had clear leaders, and that's allowed more extreme factions to rise to the top because they tend to be the more active groups. Okay, Anita, close us out.
Okay, I just want to thank y'all for coming and being able to talk about dividing politics and being able to actually come together, get to see this in a college atmosphere that we're able to do this. That one of y'all said, like, before we're ever in a political party, before we are ever anything else, we're also Americans and we're people. We are all like humans, no matter our ideologies. We're people, and that comes first. So I'm really happy that y'all all came. We also have some really exciting events coming up soon. So on the 22nd, Professor Miner is going to be coming and talking about foreign policy. He's really awesome, very interesting. Hope you guys can come to that. And we're also planning a Halloween party, so we'll have more details on that soon. It should be very fun. There will be food. I have kind of voluntold my reservation designee to make buffalo chicken dip. She makes the best buffalo chicken dip, so y'all should come.
All right, see you all next week.
You should.
How many